I had buried my husband 41 years ago, not in the ground, but in my heart. He vanished without a goodbye, without a letter, leaving me to raise a child and survive a life built on unanswered questions. I learned to live without him until one quiet evening, he stood at my door, older, broken, smiling like no time had passed. But as I listened to his story, I realized something was terribly wrong, and the truth he was hiding changed everything. The knock came just after sunset, the kind of soft, hesitant knock that feels unsure of its own right to disturb. I remember pausing with my hands still wrapped around my teacup, the steam curling up toward my face like a warning. No one ever came by anymore, not without calling first. The house had grown used to silence, and so had I. When I opened the door, I thought my mind had finally betrayed me. He stood there, thinner, bent slightly forward, hair almost entirely white, his face carved with time and regret. But the eyes, those eyes were the same, dark, searching, trembling with something that looked dangerously like hope. "Evelyn," he said, my name breaking in his mouth like glass. I felt the world tilt. 41 years collapsed into a single breath. I had practiced this moment in my head thousands of times, rehearsed what I would say if he ever returned. Anger, screams, tears, silence. Instead, I whispered, "You're dead." He swallowed. I know, that was how my husband came back from the grave. For a moment, neither of us moved. The porch light buzzed faintly above him, illuminating the lines around his eyes. The tremor in his hands. I noticed how carefully he stood, as if afraid the ground beneath him might disappear if he leaned too hard into reality. "You can't be here," I said finally. "This isn't funny." "I never thought it was," he replied, voice low. "Evelyn, please, just let me explain." Explain. That word burned. I should have slammed the door. I should have shouted. Instead, I stepped aside. Old habits are dangerous things. Love, even buried love, remembers its shape. He stepped inside, looking around as if he were walking through a museum of a life he once abandoned. His gaze lingered on the faded family photo on the wall. Me, him, and our daughter, Lily, frozen at age 3. His breath hitched. "She looks like you," he murmured. "She looks like herself." I snapped. "She grew up without you." That landed. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. "I know, I deserve that." We sat at opposite ends of the living room, the space between us heavy with decades of silence. I noticed how he avoided touching anything, as if afraid his fingerprints might contaminate the life I had built without him. "I looked for you," I said, "for years. Hospitals, police stations, morgues. I thought you were hurt, or dead, or worse. And then I thought maybe you just didn't love us enough to come back." "I did love you," he said quickly, too quickly. "I still do." "That makes it worse," I whispered. His name was Thomas. Saying it in my head felt strange now, like a word from a language I no longer spoke. Once, that name had meant safety, warmth, a future. The night he disappeared, he had kissed my forehead and told me he'd be back before dinner. Lily had been napping. I remembered the smell of soap on his shirt, the sound of the door closing. And then nothing. 41 years of nothing. "Why now?" I asked. "Why come back after all this time?" He stared at his hands. "Because I'm running out of time." The clock on the wall ticked loudly, counting something more than seconds. "I'm sick," he continued, "and I couldn't die without seeing you, without telling you the truth." My heart clenched, not with sympathy but with fear. Truth had a way of destroying carefully constructed lives. "You don't get to do this," I said. "You don't get to walk back in here and reopen everything just because you're scared." "I know," he said softly, "but please, just listen. If after that you want me gone forever, I'll leave." I folded my arms, nails digging into my skin. "You have 1 hour." He nodded. "Grateful for crumbs," he began slowly, like someone walking across thin ice. He spoke of debt, of bad decisions made in secret, of people I had never met, but who apparently knew far too much about our lives. As he talked, something fell off, not the story itself, but the careful way he told it. Like a man reciting lines he'd practiced for years. "You're telling me you disappeared to protect us," I said. "That you thought leaving was the only way?" "Yes, and in 41 years, you never once checked if we were alive." His silence answered for him. "I saw Lily," he said finally. "Once." The room spun. What? She was 16. From a distance, she was laughing. She looked happy. I told myself that meant I had done the right thing. Rage surged so fast it scared me. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. "You watched her grow up without you," I said, voice shaking. "You let her think her father didn't want her." "I wanted her every day," he said, tears spilling freely now. But I was afraid. That word again. Afraid. Fear had been my companion too, but I had stayed. The air stretched, thick and suffocating. His story ended where it began, with apologies that felt too small for the space they were trying to fill. "Is that all?" I asked. "Is that the truth you came back to tell me?" He hesitated. And in that hesitation, I knew there's more, I said. He looked at me, then not with guilt, not with shame, but with something colder. Calculating. "Yes," he admitted, "there's more." A chill crawled up my spine. "I didn't just disappear," he said. "I was supposed to stay gone." The words settled like ash. "What does that mean?" I whispered. He opened his mouth to answer, and then my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Lily. My daughter's voice was tight when I answered. "Mom, did someone come to your house tonight?" My eyes never left Thomas. "Yes," I said slowly. "Why?" There was a pause on the line, a breath. "Because," she said, "a man just came to my door asking questions about you. And Mom, he looks exactly like the man standing behind you." The blood drained from my face. Thomas closed his eyes, and in that moment, I understood the truth I had been avoiding. My husband didn't just return with a secret. He brought danger with him. The line went dead in my hand, Lily's last words echoing in my ears like a siren that refused to fade. For a moment, neither Thomas nor I spoke. The house felt smaller, the walls leaning in as if they had been waiting decades for this tension to return. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely steady enough to recognize as my own. Thomas didn't answer right away. He stared at the floor, jaw clenched, as though naming the truth out loud might summon it fully into the room. "He's someone I used to be," he said finally, "or someone who replaced me." "That makes no sense," I snapped. "Start talking now." He rubbed his face with trembling hands, then looked up at me, eyes red and exhausted. "When I disappeared, Evelyn, it wasn't just because I was in trouble. I was given a choice." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You always did like dramatic excuses. This isn't an excuse," he said. "It's a confession." He told me that 41 years ago, the debt he'd fallen into wasn't just money. It was loyalty. He'd been pulled into a group that didn't officially exist, men who solved problems quietly, erased identities, rewrote lives. They found him when he was desperate, when he thought he could fix everything on his own and protect his family. By staying silent, they told me I could disappear, he said, completely. New name, new life, no past. In return, I'd do work for them. Nothing illegal, they said, just necessary. "And you believed them?" I whispered. "I wanted to," he replied, "because the alternative was watching you and Lily suffer for my mistakes." I remembered the unpaid bills, the tension I'd sensed but never fully understood. I remembered asking him once if something was wrong, and how he'd smiled and kissed my cheek and told me not to worry. "I was supposed to die," he continued. "Officially, a fire, no body, clean." My stomach twisted. "So you let us mourn you? I thought it would be kinder," he said, tears returning. "I told myself you'd heal faster if you believed I was gone forever." "You don't get to decide that," I said, my voice cracking. "You don't get to choose our pain." "I know," he said again, that word worn thin now, "and I've hated myself for it every day." "What about the man who came to Lily's door?" I asked. "Is he one of them?" Thomas nodded slowly. He's my handler, or what used to be my handler. They don't like loose ends. And you, I said, realization dawning, are a very loose end. Yes, the silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was full of memories clawing their way back to the surface. The nights I'd cried myself to sleep. The years I'd spent wondering what I'd done wrong. The birthdays. Lily had blown out candles wishing for a father who would never come home. You built another life, I said quietly. Didn't you? Thomas flinched. Yes, I closed my eyes. Somehow. That hurt more than everything else. Do you have another family? No, he said quickly. Not like that. I kept everyone at a distance. I didn't deserve that. I wanted to believe him. I hated myself for still wanting to. The doorbell rang. We both froze. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break my ribs. The sound wasn't urgent, wasn't angry, just a polite, almost friendly chime. Thomas stood abruptly. You shouldn't answer that. This is my house, I said, standing as well despite the fear shaking my legs. Evelyn, please, he whispered. If it's him, he can't see us together. Why? Because then they'll know I broke the rules, and they won't just come for me. The bell rang again, longer this time. I moved toward the door, my mind racing. 41 years ago, Thomas had made choices without asking me. I wasn't going to let him do that again. When I opened the door, a man stood on my porch wearing a polite smile that never reached his eyes. He was tall, well-dressed, his hair neatly combed. His posture relaxed in a way that felt practiced. Mrs. Carter, he said, I'm sorry to bother you so late. My name is Daniel. Something about the way he said my name made my skin crawl. Yes, I replied. I'm looking for Thomas Carter, he said smoothly. I believe you might know him. I felt Thomas's presence behind me, close enough that I could feel his breath. I don't know anyone by that name, I said. Daniel's smile widened just a fraction. That's interesting, because he seems to know you very well. Before I could respond, Thomas stepped into view. Daniel's eyes flicked to him, sharp and assessing. For a split second, the mask slipped. Well, Daniel said, this is unexpected. You shouldn't be here, Thomas said, his voice steady but low. And you shouldn't have come back, Daniel replied. We had an understanding. I stood between them instinctively. You need to leave. Daniel chuckled softly. Mrs. Carter, this is a family matter. You wouldn't want to get involved. I've been involved for 41 years. I said, you don't get to decide that either. Daniel studied me, then nodded as if amused. You're stronger than he described. Thomas stiffened. You talked about her. Of course, Daniel said. We talked about everything. That sentence landed like a blade. What do you want? I demanded. Daniel sighed theatrically. Closure. Thomas here walked away from obligations that don't simply expire. His reappearance has raised questions. I'm dying, Thomas said bluntly. I don't have much time left. Daniel's expression didn't change. That doesn't absolve you. What happens if he doesn't go with you? I asked. Daniel met my gaze. Then the people he loves may find their quiet lives disrupted. Rage flared in my chest, hot and reckless. You threatened my daughter, and I swear. And that, Daniel interrupted gently, is why he was supposed to stay gone. Thomas reached for my arm, his grip tight. Evelyn, please, don't. I shook him off. You don't get to protect us by destroying us. Daniel checked his watch. I'll give you 24 hours. Thomas, come alone. We'll finish this properly. And if I don't? Thomas asked. Daniel smiled again, thin and cold. Then we'll come back. And next time, we won't knock. He stepped back, turning to leave, then paused. When Mrs. Carter, you might want to ask him about the other secret, the one he never planned to tell you. The door closed. The night swallowed him whole. I turned slowly to Thomas. What other secret? He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw a fear deeper than anything before. I didn't just leave to protect you, he said. I left because I was told you weren't safe with me anymore. What does that mean? He swallowed hard. It means, Evelyn, that Lily may not be my only child. The room went silent, and just like that, the past cracked open again, wider, darker, and far more dangerous than I had ever imagined. The words hit me like a cold wind cutting through the windows I had spent 41 years carefully locking shut. Lily may not be my only child. I stared at Thomas, feeling my breath catch in my chest. My mind screamed, tried to grasp what he meant, but it refused. "What are you saying?" I asked finally, voice trembling. "That there's another child, another life you hid from me." Thomas nodded slowly, his hand shaking as if the mere admission burned him. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never planned for you to find out. Not now, not ever. But Daniel's group, they said it had to be done, or there'd be consequences for everyone I cared about. You, Lily, even me." I sank into the armchair, my mind spinning. I felt dizzy, as if the floor had slipped beneath me. 41 years of survival, of building a life round the absence of one man. And suddenly everything was upended. Who is she or he? I whispered. Thomas looked at me, the sorrow in his eyes sharper than any knife I'd ever felt. "Her name is Emma. She's 18 now. I never met her. I couldn't. Not safely." The world seemed to tilt. Another child, another life he had kept secret. My mind raced back to the years I had struggled alone, to Lily growing up without a father's guidance. And now a second life existed, hidden, unheard, unseen. I felt betrayed, furious, helpless all at once. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Why lie to me for decades? We could have figured this out together." "I couldn't," Thomas said, his voice cracking. "They made it clear that if I tried, if I contacted her, if anyone knew I existed, there would be consequences. I would lose everything, and I wasn't ready to lose you, or Lily, lose us." I repeated, disbelief lacing every syllable. "You've already lost us. You left. Thomas, you abandoned us. You didn't just risk your life, you risked ours by disappearing without explanation." His gaze dropped to his hands. "I thought leaving was protecting you, but I see now, it was selfish. I can't undo it. I can only try to fix it now, and I don't have much time." I leaned back, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. Anger, sorrow, longing, all tangled into a knot I couldn't untangle. "And now?" I asked. "Now, what are we supposed to do?" Thomas shook his head. "Now, we have to find her before they do. Before Daniel comes back, before anyone else interferes. She deserves to know the truth, and she deserves her father." The words should have comforted me, but instead they amplified the danger. "And you expect me to just help you?" After 41 years of lies, Thomas's eyes glimmered with desperation. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Evelyn. I only hope you can help me save her." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I could feel the weight of the years pressing on me, the years of survival, of raising Lily, of pretending to be whole. And now this hidden life, this secret daughter, was a storm about to crash into the fragile world I had built. "Tell me everything," I said finally. "Start from the beginning. How did she happen? Where is she? And why is Daniel involved in all of this?" Thomas nodded, relief flickering across his face. He began recounting the story, and as he spoke, the pieces started to fall into place. After he disappeared, he had been forced to live under their control. He was given new identities, moved from city to city, always carefully monitored. During one of these years, he had met a woman, someone kind, someone ordinary, someone who had no idea of the dangers surrounding him. Their connection had been brief, but real, and it had resulted in a child. Emma, he hadn't contacted her, hadn't watched her grow, hadn't interfered because doing so would put her in danger. The same organization that had pulled him into their fold had eyes everywhere, and one misstep could have destroyed not just his life, but hers too. "And now," Thomas said, his voice low, "Daniel is back because they've noticed me. They know I've returned, and that means Emmer is in danger too. I can't let anything happen to her. I felt a wave of protectiveness rise in me, fierce and immediate. I had spent decades protecting Lily, keeping her safe from the world's harsh edges. And now, another child, another innocent life was at risk. I realized then that my anger at Thomas had to be tempered with action. We didn't have time for grudges. Where is she? I asked, standing, my resolve hardening. Thomas hesitated. She's in a small town in Oregon, safe for now, but they could find her at any moment. That's why I came back. I had to warn you. I had to warn her. I nodded, understanding the gravity of what lay ahead. Then we leave tonight. He shook his head. No, not tonight. Daniel knows I'm here. If we move too soon, they'll find her before we do. We need a plan. He swallowed hard, a way to stay ahead of them. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Daniel had already come once, polite but menacing, and now he knew more than we could imagine. Every step we took had to be calculated, every decision precise. And Lily, I asked, thinking of my daughter, still unaware of the shadow looming over her life. Does she know? Thomas's jaw tightened. No, she can't know. Not yet. If she learns too soon, she'll be a target too. That's why I needed to return to you first. You're the only one I trust to help me protect her and Emmer. I looked at him, the man who had left me 41 years ago, and I felt a mixture of fury and pity, fear and longing. He had made mistakes, and forgivable ones. But now he was back in the thick of danger, and we had no choice but to act. I made a decision. We do this together, for Lily, for Emma, for whatever chance at redemption you think you deserve. But you follow my rules. No more secrets. No more lies. Thomas nodded, relief flickering in his eyes. Yes, Evelyn, I promise. We spent the rest of the night preparing, gathering what little resources we had and mapping out the journey to find Emmer. Every plan was tinged with fear, every step with uncertainty. But for the first time in decades, I felt a sense of purpose, a sense of urgency that cut through the numbness of the years. By dawn, we were ready to confront the past, ready to face Daniel and his shadowy organization, ready to find the daughter I never knew existed. But as we left the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that Daniel's words about secrets, about danger were not empty threats. Somewhere, unseen, someone was tracking our every move, and that someone was waiting for the moment to strike. The morning fog clung to the roads as we drove north, winding through hills and forests that seemed endless. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, knuckles white, my mind racing with every possible scenario. Thomas sat beside me, silent, eyes fixed on the road ahead, but I could feel the weight of his guilt pressing down on me like a physical force. You have to tell me, I said finally, breaking the tense silence. Everything about her, everything about Emmer. Thomas exhaled slowly. She doesn't know who I am. She only knows her mother. Her life has been carefully curated to keep her safe. She's 18 now, smart, curious, independent, but she's never faced the danger that we're running from. I swallowed hard. What kind of danger? He shook his head. Daniel's organization isn't just about control or obedience. They manipulate, they race, they punish. Anyone who stands in their way disappears. And now, with me back in the picture, Emmer becomes a target because I'm her father. They'll stop at nothing to reclaim what they see as theirs. The road stretched before us, empty except for the occasional car cutting through the mist. I glanced at Thomas, the man I had loved decades ago. The man who had left me to navigate life without him was now utterly dependent on me. And yet, despite everything, I felt a strange pull to protect him. Not because I had forgiven him, far from it, but because our lives, intertwined by blood and history, were now inextricably linked. We drove for hours in silence, the tension in the car thick enough to choke on. Every rustle of leaves, every distant honk of a horn, every flicker of movement in the trees made me flinch. We were two people walking or driving through a world that had been waiting 41 years to confront us. Finally, Thomas spoke. We have to reach her apartment before they do. I have contacts, people who can help us stay off the radar. But only for a short time. And if we're too late, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He turned to me, eyes full of desperation. Then we fight. We do whatever it takes. I won't let her or Lily get hurt because of my past mistakes. The first signs of civilization appeared. A cluster of buildings, a coffee shop with a faint glow, a gas station blinking its neon lights. Somewhere in this town lived Emma, completely unaware that her life was about to be upended. We parked her few blocks away from her apartment building, crouching behind my car to survey the area. The building was modest 3 stories, brick facade, ivy climbing one side. A single light shone from the top floor window. That's her, Thomas whispered. Emma, last I checked, she was home tonight. I studied the window, imagining the young woman living inside, oblivious to the danger closing in. A pang of guilt hit me. I had lived my life protecting Lily. But Emma had had none of that protection. Thomas had hidden her for her own safety. But that secrecy had made her vulnerable. We moved carefully, sticking to shadows, circling the building. Every step was measured, deliberate. We had no idea if Daniel or his operatives were already here, watching, waiting. Finally, we reached the side entrance. I picked the lock with the skills I had learned long ago when preparing for emergencies. Years of worry had honed instincts I hadn't realized. Till had the door click open and we slipped inside, hearts pounding. The stairwell smelled of dust and old paint. Each creak of the stairs beneath our feet sounded like a gunshot. We climbed quietly, floor by floor, until we reached the top. There it was, Emma's apartment door. Thomas took a deep breath. I'll go first. You stay behind me. I nodded, though fear clawed at my stomach. He knocked softly, then slowly turned the doorknob. The door opened a crack, revealing a young woman tall, with striking dark eyes and long hair that caught the light in a halo of gold. She looked straight at Thomas, and for a heartbeat, there was recognition in her gaze, though she didn't know why. Who are you? She asked, voice cautious but curious. Thomas swallowed hard. Emma, I'm your father. Her eyes widened. What? I know this is a lot, he said gently. I'm not here to hurt you, but you need to come with us. You're in danger. Emma took a step back, confusion and fear mingling in her eyes. Danger? Who? Why? I stepped forward, my voice firm. Listen to him, please. I promise. We're trying to protect you. Her gaze flicked between us, hesitation battling the innate trust she had for strangers. Then the sound of tires screeching outside made her freeze. They're here, Thomas whispered. Daniel knows we're close. Emma's face went pale. Who is here? I grabbed her hand. No time to explain everything. We have to move now. She hesitated, then nodded, fear and adrenaline pushing her into action. We moved swiftly, exiting the apartment building and into the alley. Behind it, the fog had thickened, a perfect cover for our escape. But it also meant we had no idea who might be following us. We ran through back streets, sticking to shadows, hearts hammering. Thomas led the way, occasionally glancing over his shoulder. I kept Emma close, trying to convey some sense of safety despite the terror radiating from her every movement. After what felt like hours, we finally reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Thomas had arranged for temporary refuge, a place where we could regroup and plan our next move. The inside was cold, dusty, and empty, but for the first time that night, I felt a flicker of relief. Emma collapsed onto an old cot, trembling. I don't understand, she whispered. Why are you my father? Thomas knelt beside her. I'm so sorry, Emma. I had to stay away to keep you safe. But now we need to protect you from them. From Daniel. From everyone who would hurt you to control me. Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt my own sting. The room was heavy with emotion, fear, sorrow, relief, all mingling into something raw and unmanageable. I realized then that the danger wasn't just physical, it was emotional. The lies, the years of absence, the secrecy had all built a fragile house of cards that could collapse at any moment. And now, with Emma, our care, that collapse could affect all of us. Thomas looked at me, eyes pleading, we have to trust each other now. No secrets, no lies, just trust, please. I nodded, swallowing hard. We trust each other. But if Daniel or anyone else tries to hurt her, I swear. He took my hand, gripping it tightly. I swear too. Outside, the fog thickened, swallowing the world whole. Inside, the three of us huddled together, knowing that the night was far from over. Daniel's shadow loomed, and every move we made would be watched. Every step could lead to betrayal or salvation. And as I looked at Emma, my new daughter, the daughter my husband had hidden from me for decades, I realized that the next hours would determine not just our safety, but whether the family we had pieced together could survive the storm that was coming. The warehouse was silent, except for the faint hum of the city outside and the shallow breaths of the three of us huddled in the corner. Emma sat close to Thomas, still shaking, her wide eyes reflecting the dim light. I sat nearby, my body tense, every sense alert. We all knew Daniel would not wait long. Hours passed like minutes. The fog outside grew thicker, curling round the warehouse like ghostly fingers. Thomas checked the small windows, peering into the night. They're close. He whispered, I can feel it. Daniel doesn't come alone. I gritted my teeth. 41 years of fear, lies, and abandonment had led to this night. And yet, standing here, with my husband back in my life and a daughter I had never known clinging to him, I felt a surge of determination. They would not take her. They would not destroy what little family we had rebuilt. A shadow moved outside, just beyond the fog. Then another, then dozens. The sound of boots crunching on gravel reached us. Daniel and the people he had trained, the ones who had enforced his will for decades. Thomas grabbed my arm. Stay behind me. Protect Emma at all costs. The warehouse door slammed open, and the room filled with cold air and the weight of imminent confrontation. Daniel stepped in first, flanked by two men whose faces were masked in darkness. His expression was calm, almost casual, but the smile that crossed his face was sharp and dangerous. Thomas, Daniel said smoothly, I see you've brought reinforcements. I stepped forward, my voice firm. We're not leaving anyone behind. Not Emma, not Lily, not me, and definitely not Thomas. Daniel's eyes narrowed, pulled. I like that, but it won't help. You, Thomas stepped in front of Emma. I won't let you hurt her, or anyone else I care about. Daniel chuckled. Hurt? Oh, Thomas, you've underestimated me. This isn't about hurting anyone. This is about control. You walked away. You broke the rules. You chose love over duty. And now, they all paid the price. I felt a shiver run down my spine. This man, polite, measured, terrifying, was the architect of the decades of fear and secrecy that had ruined our lives. And now, he was here, demanding obedience. You're wrong, I said, voice rising with conviction. We don't live in fear anymore. You don't control us. And if you try to hurt Emma, you'll regret it. Daniel's smile widened, but his eyes hardened. Very well. Let's see if your courage matches your words. In a sudden rush, Thomas moved, knocking one of Daniel's men aside. I grabbed a metal pipe from the corner of the warehouse, holding it tightly. Emma clung to Thomas, eyes wide but trusting him completely. The confrontation escalated in a blur of motion. Thomas fought with precision, years of survival instincts coming alive. I swung the pipe when another man lunged at me, hitting him squarely in the shoulder. Emma screamed, ducking behind a stack of crates. Daniel watched, calculating, assessing. Not bad, he said, almost approvingly. But you can't win. Thomas froze, realizing Daniel had reached for something at his belt or gun. I didn't think, I acted. I hurled a wrench across the room. It struck Daniel's hand, sending the weapon clattering across the floor. Seizing the moment, Thomas tackled Daniel, pinning him to the ground. Emma ran to us, tears streaming down her face. Dad, don't let him. Thomas's grip was iron, his voice steady. I've got him. Stay behind me. I glanced around. The other men had frozen. Uncertain without Daniel's command, using that hesitation, I pushed a heavy crate against the door, buying us precious seconds. Daniel struggled under Thomas's weight. You think this changes anything? He spat. I am inevitable. No, Thomas said quietly. His eyes locked on Daniel's. You're done. You're controlling tonight. The fight lasted only moments longer, with a final effort. Thomas overpowered Daniel and tied him with rope I found nearby. The others, seeing their leader restrained, backed away, fear overtaking their training. Within minutes, the warehouse was silent again. We stood together, breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through our veins. Emma clung to Thomas, still shaking, but slowly calming as the reality of safety sank in. I looked at Thomas, older, broken in parts, but alive, and felt a mixture of fury and relief, fear and love. It's over, I whispered. Thomas nodded. For now. But we need to disappear completely. Daniel won't stay quiet forever. We have to protect Emma and Lily. And we have to be honest. No more secrets. I took a deep breath. 41 years of silence, of lies, of abandonment, all of it led to this moment. We had faced the past and survived. But the future required vigilance, courage, and unity. Emma looked at me. Then at Thomas. I don't understand all of it, she said softly. But I trust you both. Tears sprang to my eyes. And we'll protect you, no matter what. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder, his eyes glistening. Evelyn, thank you for standing by me, for trusting me. Even after everything, I shook my head. I don't know if I forgive you yet. But right now, we have each other, and that's enough. The night outside was quiet, the fog beginning to lift. A new day was coming, a day free from secrets, free from fear. A day where we could begin to rebuild. We weren't out of danger. Daniel's shadow would linger, and the consequences of 41 years of lies would ripple through our lives. But for the first time, we faced it together, as a family, messy, imperfect, and bound by blood and love. And as dawn broke over the horizon, I realized that the shocking secret, the long-lost husband, and the hidden daughter had not destroyed us. They had brought us back together. We were still here, still fighting, still alive, and we would survive whatever came next.